Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. I'm joined by Eric Pond, Pete Mohan, and Pete Worth. And just last night, Marquette got its biggest win in years, certainly the biggest win of the Steve Wojciechowski era, with a 74-72 victory over the Villanova Wildcats. What an amazing game to go from the lows of being down 16, 17 points all the way through that 6-minute stretch at the end. It was an amazing game, and up until the final buzzer sounded, Pete Worth, I didn't actually believe that we were going to win. I was convinced we were going to find a way to lose, and a testament to this team growing up, continuing to play well together, that they found a way to win. Wasn't pretty, but at the same time, it was beautiful, and they got it done.
They did. It was absolutely shocking. I was sitting in my kitchen watching on my laptop and slapping my table throughout the entire first 30 minutes of that game, and then slapping it just as hard during the last 6 minutes or whatever when we made that comeback. And then when we won and I was kind of hooting and hollering by myself, I felt like I was right there with all the other crazy Marquette fans, even though I was just sitting alone in my kitchen. But I could imagine what it would be like. A shocking comeback, which Pete and Eric, I remember texting you guys halfway through the second half. There's no possible way we can do this, just because I thought they were too good and that we were too inexperienced, and Marcus Howard is our lone consistent contributor in big games, and he was fouled out completely. I just couldn't believe it.
One of the things that I kept thinking about in Eric, I want to hear what you think about this. For us Marquette fans, we're a little bit older, and one of the moments that we all remember was Dwayne Wade's run to the Final Four. Maybe it was the first game in the Big East. But for a younger batch of Marquette fans, they don't have that big memory. Maybe a big win under Buzz. But for so many Marquette fans, new Marquette fans, this is going to be the seminal moment in how they view Marquette basketball.
Mike, I couldn't agree more. I think this is one of the biggest moments in Marquette basketball history, and I don't think that's overstating it. Through our time at Marquette, and you're right, we are, I think, in a little bit older generation here. We did not have a court storming moment. We certainly didn't have a win of this magnitude. We know there have only been 2 all time. I think the closest thing that comes to it is a Marquette Sweet 16 victory in Washington, D.C.
Against Miami.
Not on our home court. To see Marquette students, Marquette fans, young and old, storm the court at BMO Harris Bradley Center is something that just gives you chills. It's something that we've never experienced. And I think we just have to be so happy for the folks who were there and got to experience that. They're part of Marquette history.
I thought I was going to experience it once right after Steve Novak's game winner against Notre Dame our freshman year. But there were 2 or 3 very, very beefy security guards making sure that was not going to happen. I was living through the crowd, just thinking back to that night that I did not get that opportunity.
This game is exceptionally special because of that reason, especially in a day and age where it seems like everyone rushes the court or rushes the field in football, whether you're beating the number 13 team in the country or just a rival and you're both unranked, people are just rushing the court. At Marquette, it's been pretty sacred. I mean, when was the last time people did rush the court? I'm not even sure. This was certainly the time to do it, and those fans earned it. It looked like everyone was having an amazing time. I had chills at home. I was standing in front of my TV, recording the whole post game on my phone, shaking. So I'm sure it's going to be terrible video, but I'm saving that. That's one that I'm actually going to have to go out of my way to save to my computer or something, so I don't lose that one. It was an incredible finish, and I would agree that I didn't have faith throughout most of the game, and probably not many people did, considering we were down by double digits for basically the whole game and only led for 22 seconds. Sealing it with a rebound, a fitting way for us, huh?
Yeah, and 2 made free throws.
Right.
Marquette fined $5,000 for court storming.
Yep.
And all of that money goes to Camp Hometown Heroes, a summer camp for children and siblings of fallen U.S. service members. So I think we get some ups here as well. It's a huge win-win. I can't think of $5,000 better spent ever.
This is definitely one of the. I totally agree. $5,000 well spent.
I wouldn't be surprised if Marquette even matched it and doubled it.
Yeah,
just because. Yeah,
good pub. As we've said, this is one of those games where you're going to remember where you were. A lot of people are going to be able to tell the story that they stormed the court, that they were in the stands. You're going to remember where you were watching this game. Transitioning more to a little bit about what the game actually looked like on the court.
Can I just say one more thing before you go on? Just one thing that I regret, and I hope we can turn this around this season. Looking at the crowd, and throughout most of the season it's been an issue, but in the upper deck, it looked like it was maybe half full going around. And it's a shame that more people weren't there to see this game. I wish people would get out there and fill up the BMO in its last couple of seasons in the stadium, because when we went there, if you showed up around game time for the student section,
top row,
I mean, you were relegated to the top row, basically. And that doesn't look like it's the case these days, and that's a shame. These players have put their heart into this season, regardless of what their record is right now. I just wish there was more students and more fans out there to see this game.
And that's what will happen if you have a sustained period of poor seasons. And, so maybe this game and the last few games and this team actually having a chance to make the NCAA tournament will get more of those student and alumni asses into the seats.
Mm-hmm. Have faith.
I think this game can break some fan apathy, and particularly student apathy.
That was definitely the wall that Wojo needed to break through, and I think, we've said it before on this pod that the third season of a coach, in this case Steve Wojciechowski, is a telling season, typically for the trajectory of the rest of their time at this school. In that regard, things are trending in the right direction. Getting into the game a little bit more, really interesting game, because I thought we came out tense, we came out tight, we were giving Villanova a lot of credit.
Spotted them an 8-0 run.
Mm-hmm. And really, for most of the first half, we were out of this game. And it wasn't until midway through the second half that we were really able to use defense, something that Wojo and this coaching staff have been preaching all along, to key our turnaround. So I'm curious what you guys think about what you thought really kept these guys from playing that way the whole game. And do you think it was defense that finally kind of sparked that change in momentum?
Well, I certainly think that the 1-3-1 defense had an impact. That was obvious. As soon as we went to that in the second half, we really slowed them down. They didn't look comfortable finding their shots, and when we did force them into those corner three-pointers, they were off the mark on those. When you look at their stats, they're really unbelievable how poorly Villanova shot three-pointers. 6 for 34 in the game.
17%.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And, and that's the type of game that you have to capitalize. And we certainly outshot them. We shot 9 for 19. So we made 3 more threes on 15 less attempts. Let that sink in for a second. But yeah, I think that 1-3-1 defense was the key to turn it around. But we did play some good man too.
I love that zone.
They played it well. They executed it well.
Yeah, they did. They did, and it's extremely tough to not give up open looks. And there were a lot of open looks for Villanova. They just happened to be missing them. And it was DiVincenzo and Bridges taking a lot of those in the second half when we were making our run. I don't really know why that was, why they kept on, taking those shots. I told you, give it to Bricklaying DiVincenzo and company.
I
thought like Hart or Jenkins were going to be the ones that were going to try to kind of take over the game, but those were the guys that kept on taking the shots, and they kept on missing them, and that allowed us to get back in. I think in the first half, we have a lot of credit to give to Luke Fisher for kind of carry us through the first half.
Yeah, got some big and ones.
Yeah.
This was good, Luke.
But also, it's a good trend to see Wojo continually trying to make him a focal point. I thought he was really the main reason why we stayed fairly in it in the first half. And then we started kind of to slip a little bit in the second half. And then, Dwayne Wilson and Caton were huge down the stretch. Another thing is that, we were getting down by 15, I think was the biggest margin, and that was the most frustrating thing, is that we were kind of hanging around, kind of, sort of, and then we would miss free throws, and then we would give up another offensive rebound. And it was just like, oh, if we could just be getting those boards and making these free throws, we were actually have a shot. And that's what was made it even more shocking that we were able to pull off the win. Some huge shots. And again, DiVincenzo and Bridges taking the majority of the shots for Nova and missing them.
Yeah, and that was really my biggest beef throughout the whole game was those offensive rebounds that we surrendered. They had, what do they have? 16 offensive rebounds on us and 17 second chance points. It was the most frustrating part is that we would play great defense for 30 seconds and they'd get an offensive rebound, get a whole new possession, get another shot, and that's when they would score. So we weren't getting rewarded for our great defense because our rebounding was so lackluster.
A lot of this game, it was the same old giving up easy second chance buckets. That's a really difficult storyline for us to deal with this year, and it's been recurring. I think it's so interesting and worth noting that this game, and it's obvious, was the antithesis of two hard losses to Butler and Seton Hall this year. We were in shutdown D at the end of this game. We allowed Villanova 2 of 13 to end the game and went on a 19-4 run ourselves. I think, if we pair that kind of D with one of the leading offenses in the nation, this is an exciting team. This is what we hoped would come together.
Looking at the stats in the second half, we shot essentially 70% from the field in the second half, 63% from the three-point line, and 61% from the line. The free throw shooting percentage for the game was 60% as well. So pretty poor from the line overall, particularly from Marquette. But the way we shot the ball in the second half, who do we got to call out? Caton. Caton had an incredible game and really kind of capped off this run that he's made in Big East play. Really turned.
Oh, yeah, and he let you know about it in the post game.
He did, and we'll get to that. That was a great post game interview. Caton has been on fire in Big East play, and this was just the icing on the cake. A terrific game from him. And then one other person that I want to call out, and I was beating myself up last night because I wish I had said it before. Dwayne Wilson is one of my favorite players on the Marquette team for one reason, really. He doesn't get a lot of minutes. He doesn't get as many minutes as he used to. He's not the focal point of our offense like he used to be in years past. But he has maturely accepted his role, and he has not let any negativity affect the team that could come from that. He's been a good leader. He plays good defense, and he does what's asked of him on offense. He
makes the smartest plays out there of anyone.
Yeah.
He makes creative passes. He takes open shots. And, he doesn't turn the ball over. That's senior leadership leading by example.
It was, and I was
junior, I guess.
I was so happy junior, and I was so happy to see him be able to do that in the second half last night.
Really excited that we just get him for another year. If he keeps on playing like the way that he can and the way that he has in the last few games with the maturity level that he's shown. But yeah, I mean, he sparked the comeback. I mean, his defense and his 3-point shot and that take to the hole where he just blew by every one of the Villanova's defenders. That kind of got the crowd re-energized, I think, for the most part. And then Caton, who, if you've always listened to the Real Chili podcast, or you have, throughout the season, that we've always been huge fans of Caton here. Mohan, I remember at the beginning of the year where you were talking about him, and he had a quote saying, a quote from one of his coaches, I think, that said he wanted to be the man, and we kind of laughed that off. Well, we're kind of seeing a little bit of that, mostly just in this one instance, yes. But the shots that he hit were big-time shots. I mean, that fade...
and he has no hesitation.
Right. Well, that's definitely true.
Right. He's got a short memory on the court, and I think that can help him, and that can lead to some of the stuff we saw in non-con, but now it's working in our favor.
Part of a good shooter is being in rhythm, and, you always... I mean... What do we always harp on Sandy Cohen on before he left is his hesitation and not knowing when to pull the trigger. I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it too. This guy, Reinhardt and Rousey as well, they get the ball and they pull the trigger. Not to mention Howard, who is a complete non-factor because of the fouls. But you have guys that are confident pulling the trigger when they're open. That is such a difference over last year's team, where everyone was flinching every time they had the ball.
And Sam Hauser, we haven't mentioned him yet. He obviously his couple threes in that comeback too were huge. Who another guy who's unafraid to jack one. when we need it.
And shout out to our team's leading rebounder, Hanif.
I don't know if this is just me and my perception or what, but it seems to me that between our two freshmen, Sam and Marcus, when one is down and one's having a bad game, the other one steps in and really takes over and fills that gap and fills the need. It happens both ways. That's just something I've seen this season. Like Sam and Marcus seem to, again, when one is in trouble, when one's down, the other one can fill the void, either, and really on both ends of the court. It seems to be a real dynamic.
Well, Sam never really got on track in the first half. You could see he was visibly frustrated, even though he didn't have the same foul issues that he did in the previous game, which we got to give him credit for. He worked on that issue, and fouls weren't a factor for him. That second half, he seemed a little bit more comfortable in the flow of the offense and keyed by that huge shot at the end to bring us within 3, I think, right?
Well, that's an underrated part about Villanova too, is that their defense is really good.
Yeah,
it's not just an offensive team.
I think really good is an understatement. I think they're incredible.
They completely shut us down in the first half, outside of kind of Luke's inside play, which I talked about. But yeah, they're long, they're disciplined, they get out to the shooters. They got into the passing lanes. How many times did we just telegraph passes where we thought it was just
brutal.
an easy pass to the wing, but they were able to get their hand in there.
There was at least 4 or 5 of those.
Yeah, or I remember an instance where Caton drove kind of into the lane, took a couple dribbles, and Jawan, kind of like he has been prone to do,
he dribbled behind his back off someone else's foot, and it was like...
Yeah, those kind of things where they were right on there,
sloppy.
right on them, and were able to get their hands on the ball. So, I mean, they're very good. We're fortunate to get out with a 2-point win with as poorly as they shot the ball.
Yeah, Villanova will not shoot the ball this poorly ever again. I mean, it's really amazing how bad they were. Looking at the bench points, this is, thinking about the game, this makes sense. Marquette, 38 points off the bench, Villanova just 6. So really speaking to the depth that we have, and really almost everyone on our roster can shoot the basketball or has the ability to get hot at any given time. And that's such a swing from years past. And really from earlier this season, we were getting a lot of our production from the starters. So a switch there as well. But I agree. Villanova's going to have this kind of shooting night. Watching the game, I didn't get a chance to rewatch it yet, but watching the game live, a lot of the shots that Villanova was missing weren't because we were pressuring them.
Yeah.
They missed a lot of wide open shots. We did pressure them at points, but they were...
You're never going to see these numbers again, though. Jenkins 0 for 6 from 3, Brunson 0 for 5 from 3, and DiVincenzo 0 for 6 from 3. That is luck.
As a team, 40.3% from the field, 17.6% from 3. I mean...
And we took advantage.
Yeah.
Despite our free throw shooting.
I mean, I think there's an interesting discussion there about with these 2 wins that we've just had over the number 1 team in the country at home and then number 7 on the road. Haters are going to say that there are ways that you can couch both of those, maybe less so the Villanova game. But I think the point, despite those claims, remains is that for a young team with a lot of new faces this year, they're finally starting to play together. I said at the last podcast when we recapped the Creighton game, I said that this team looks like they believe. They believe in their coaching staff. Someone makes a play, everyone on the bench is up and at it. When you get a win like this against a team like Villanova, who mopped the floor with us just a couple weeks ago.
Reigning national champions.
I mean, what does this do for your confidence? It kicks you to a whole different level. And I think that means really exciting things coming down the stretch here for the last 10 or so games of the Big East season. It's going to be exciting to see how this team plays now against what we would consider lesser competition. We play against Providence on Saturday. How does a young team bounce back from a big win like this?
That's what Wojo's been harping on, ever since the end of the game last night, is just kind of, celebrate tonight, just like a big, playoff win or a big NCAA tournament win, celebrate it that night and kind of look on to the next one, typical coach speak or whatever. But, that's what this team needs to do because, although our tournament resume looks a hell of a lot better now, it's still not a guarantee with a lot of games left. And, like we've talked about, we're not consistent enough to kind of look past anybody, especially, any team in the Big East can beat us. So.
Yeah, I think Wojo said it best in a direct letter to the fans that he put out today, which I think is a great touch, something that shows Wojo's appreciation for the fans and for the Marquette basketball community. But he said, we have a lot of work to do. Let's build on this moment. Saturday's a huge game for a program against a talented and well-coached team. He's referring to Providence. Let's have another great environment. We need you. I think, this is a call to action, not only for the players and how they respond,
Right.
but we all need to get behind this team. You're talking about low attendance numbers. You're talking about issues at the Bradley Center as well. This is a game for all of us to rally around as the Marquette community. And, going into the end of the conference season, going into potential tournament play, this is the rallying cry. Like, here we go. It's straight from Wojo.
Totally agree. And we're doing our part with this podcast, so everybody else needs to get the hell on board.
Beautiful penmanship in that letter by Wojo as well.
Beautiful cursive. I just want to say that haven't seen those beautiful of loops.
Oh,
and,
beautiful.
Steve, a long time.
Oops.
His name is actually Steve the Calligrapher Wojciechowski, in case you didn't know. But I think that our team is really going to respond well this weekend, and we've already hit on these things, is that there are still coachable moments from this game.
Oh, yeah.
Even though you upset the number one team in the country. In a lot of other programs, a lot of lesser programs, you beat the number one team, and it's all partying all the time. But us basic level understanding fans can tell that there was still plenty of work that could be done even in such a huge upset. And so I think that the coaching staff will feed off of the positivity surrounding the team, but also be able to really show them that film and show them what they can do better. And I think that we'll see an even better team come out against Providence, and they'd better be ready for Marcus Howard, because he's going to come out pissed and he's going to probably drop 30 on Providence. So
I would love to see that. I would love to. Jeez.
That's a hot
You heard
Yeah, that's very hot.
YHIHF. You heard it here first.
Jeez.
Yeah, let's hope the program and the fan base is rejuvenated a little bit after this win, And I think what it does is it bolsters expectations, or raises expectations for the rest of the season, especially the home games. We look at the Xavier game or the Butler game coming up, and a lot of us probably think like, probably not gonna happen. But after this win, we might even go in there kind of expecting to beat those teams.
Yeah.
Shut the hell up, June.
Getting pissed outside. Big things for confidence. If we're not going to do Providence predictions, because I don't think we're prepared to do that. Maybe we'll tweet out everybody's predictions later this week, just to keep you guys on the edge of your toes. If you didn't get the chance to listen to it, I'm going to highly recommend you listen to the Marquette Student Radio final 30 seconds of the game call. There were several broadcasts that had the game call last night. I thought the Marquette Student Radio one was by far the best in that. The fellas that did it were Kellen Buddy and John Stepp. We don't know who is the actual play-by-play announcer, so fellas, excuse us. Whoever did that was fantastic, as was the rest of the broadcast. So we highly recommend doing that. And you may be getting a request from us soon to use that clip in a renewed version of our podcast intro, so stay tuned for that. Fellas, I want to throw it to you guys for any final thoughts before we sign off here this evening. The biggest Marquette basketball win, maybe in history, certainly of the past few years. Any final thoughts?
The biggest win in Marquette basketball history was the 1977 national championship, Mike. But this was still
True.
this was still pretty good. Also, in addition to the great call from the kids at MU Radio, got to give a shout out to Jim McIlvain's "Here Comes the Students."
Here comes the
Check that one out.
All right.
Because that one's pretty good too. It was a close second. This win was so shocking to me. I was just floored at the end of it that we were able to make that comeback. And I just didn't think that we had the character. The team as a whole had the character to come back from the number one team in the nation, defending national champs by 15 in the last 9 minutes. We haven't had a win like that. We haven't had a team that we've had confidence in that could do something like that for so long. And I'm hoping that the expectations, the stadium, the people in the stadium, the energy of the fan base is raised that much higher after this win. Ride it out for the next few games, build that tournament resume, and let's hope we're dancing.
So you want them to get on their feet, is what you're saying?
Yes. Yes, everyone in the stadium. Yeah, forget the first basket.
I want the fans to cheer on the fans to
Yeah,
get their
get rid
fans
of
on
that
their
first
feet.
basket garbage. Stand the entire time.
Eric Pond, any final thoughts?
What great spirit and what great fight this team showed last night. It was one of the greatest moments in recent memory we have on this Marquette team. And like Wojo said, let's build on this moment. Let's build on this moment as a team. Let's build on this moment as a community around Marquette, as fans, as just a loyal group of supporters. Let's build on the moment.
Pete Mohan.
I just think that it's a great feeling to finally have a team that believes in itself, and you could see that the way these guys look at each other after the game or after they make a great play, and they're psyched for each other, and they're like they see that in practice every day, but they're like, where's that been? Where's that been? Here it is now. You've seen it manifest itself on the court, and that's a huge deal for these guys mentally. I think that moving forward, that positive mentality as a team is what's going to take this team to the next level. So I'm looking forward to less mental mistakes the rest of the season. Please, less mental mistakes, because this team is just so good when they're not turning the ball over and when they're hustling after defensive rebounds. So I'm going to put the prayers in the prayer box that our defensive rebounding improves and that we just don't dribble the ball off our foot. And I think that we're going to have a great rest of the season, and I can't wait to see it.
Marquette has 10 games left in the Big East Conference regular season. We are predicted by Ken Pomeroy to have an 11-7 record. I agree. We showed toughness down the stretch here. That's all Wojo can talk about. This is going to be a really fun finish to the season, the Big East tournament, and hopefully, increasingly, looking like an appearance in the NCAA tournament. Cross your fingers.
As long as we don't lose to DePaul.
As long as we don't lose to DePaul.
Don't lose to DePaul. Don't lose to St. John's.
Yep.
We don't usually do recruiting, but Joey Hauser got on his feet for this win as well, so I think that's worth it.
Oh, Big Joe.
Wait, go
Silver tuna.
Silver tuna.
More details, Mr. Pond.
Was there a quote?
Number one team in the nation goes down. 4 exclamation points.
Ooh, 4.
Ooh.
4.
Is he leaning?
Also, shout out to Danny Pooty and all the other awesome Marquette alum who were super active on Twitter last night and social media celebrating this win.
All right, Marquette faces off against Providence in Milwaukee Saturday, January 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central for all you nerds in the Central Time Zone. That should be a good game. We'll have predictions out on Twitter later this week. Thanks so much for listening to this episode for the Real Chili Podcast. We are Marquette. We'll talk to you next time.
Didn't think you had to call me a nerd. Calling the entire Marquette fan base a nerd too, including the entire and the entire enrollment.
What's up, Marquette? What's up? What's up, Marquette? What's up?